Hello and a very warm welcome to 5 पैसा. My name is मुबीना कपासी और इस वेबिनार में हम बात करने वाले हैं एक नए NFO की. The NFO is focused around the Nifty Next 50 index. If you have heard this index's name for the very first time, then don't worry. आज हम आपके सारे doubts clear करने वाले हैं. And in fact, joining me today is Shelly Gang. She's the product head at TATA Mutual Fund. TATA Mutual Fund जो कि निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 के लिए एक इंडेक्स फंड लॉन्च कर रहे हैं एंड दैट्स एग्जैक्टली द एनएफओ दैट वी आर गोइंग टू बी टॉकिंग अबाउट. शैली, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर जॉइनिंग अस टुडे. तो आई गेस सबसे पहले लेट्स break down the basics for all of our viewers. Tell us a bit about the Nifty Next 50. हम सबने Nifty 50 के बारे में तो जरूर सुना है, but what exactly do you mean by Nifty Next 50?
Great. Yes, very important to understand that at the start. So Nifty 500 is one index, जिससे Nifty 100 index बनाया जाता है, and then from Nifty 100, which forms the base and the universe, सबसे पहले Nifty 50 index construct किया जाता है basis the free float market cap. जो market cap easily available है trading के लिए, available है to freely buy and sell, उस market cap, that's the free float market cap, उस मार्केट कैप के बेसिस पे निफ्टी 50 फ्रीज किया जाता है एंड द बैलेंस और द बियॉन्ड स्टॉक्स बियॉन्ड द 50 स्टॉक्स दे गो एंड सिट इन निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 इंडेक्स.
Okay, so these are also basically large caps. It's just that उन्होंने वो Nifty 50 के कैटेगरी में नहीं है. It's the Nifty Next 50 जैसे नाम में clearly लिखा हुआ है.
Yes, so the market cap, average market cap, so the 51st stock market cap is about 1,60,000 crores, which is huge, and the 100th stock market cap is around 92,000 crores. So as you rightly said, these are the second leg of large caps.
In a way, ये large cap fund ही हुआ, if you go to see the fact that it's a 1,60,000 crore market cap. Okay. अभी आपके फंड के बारे में बात करते हैं. It is a passive fund. The name is Tata Nifty Next 50 Index Fund. So इसके बारे में हमें जरा बताइए, for all of our viewers who may not be aware of how would this be different from a actively managed fund. If you're launching a passive fund, what exactly would it mean?
So passive fund में इंडेक्स एक ऑलरेडी कंस्ट्रक्टेड जो है उसे डिसिप्लिन्ड तरीके से रेप्लिकेट करना है. निफ्टी 50 जो है वो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द इंडियन इकोनॉमी है. एज आवर इकोनॉमी ग्रोज, जो निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 हैं, जो सेकंड tier of large cap stocks, we can say in a manner, these are also large caps, but they also start showing a lot of promising growth because as the country grows and we become more broad-based in growth, this is where the emerging leaders sit. And because this is the space where emerging leaders sit, they become relevant and to the growth of the country and the economy as well. So this piece becomes very, very important because this is a place where emerging leaders sit. And these are the companies which, of course, are not behemoths right now like the Nifty 50, but they are just at the cusp of, large caps or greatness, as we can say. So these are like, nominees to the Oscar Awards.
Very well put. Very great, very funny comparison, Shelly, really. So tell us a bit about these nominees. And also you mentioned they're very emerging companies. तो इस इंडेक्स में जो सेक्टोरल कॉम्पोजिशन है वर्सेस निफ्टी 50 के जो सेक्टोरल कॉम्पोजिशन है, उनमें क्या फर्क है? बिकॉज वी नो निफ्टी 50 में बहुत सारे बैंक्स है, कई सारे आईटी कंपनीज है जिनका मार्केट कैप इज सो लार्ज दैट उनका वेटेज भी is quite a bit on the Nifty 50. So tell us a bit about what the sectoral composition is like for the Nifty Next 50. Is it different from Nifty 50? क्या weightages अलग है, exposure अलग है to different sectors?
Yes, Nifty Next 50 actually adds a lot of value even for investors जिनके पास Nifty 50 है. उन्हें Nifty Next 50 में काफी value नजर आएगी for various reasons. One, इसका जो sector allocation है वो बहुत smooth है. फाइनेंशियल्स फिर भी सबसे बड़ा सेक्टर है निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 में, बट प्राइवेट बैंक्स नहीं है जो निफ्टी 50 में है. एंड वहाँ पे 33-32% इज द फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज एलोकेशन, पर यहाँ पे 20% है. सो द लार्जेस्ट सेक्टर हियर इज 20%. और वो जो इट्स नॉट वेरी स्क्यूड टुवर्ड्स वन और टू सेक्टर्स. for example, the higher allocation in Nifty Next 50 is towards capital goods, consumer services, realty, chemicals. And the allocation, which is lower as compared to Nifty 50, is largely in IT and financial services. So if you chart out the tapering off, you will see that the tapering off of sectors or the distribution of allocations towards sectors is much more smoother in Nifty Next 50. And the other part is when we go beyond or underneath sectors, the exposure to each sector is through more number of subsegments here. For example, in financial services, in this index, you would find general insurance, life insurance, financial institutions, NBFCs, housing finance companies, many subsegments as compared to Nifty 50, which is more predominantly consumed by private banks there. Same is the case in consumer FMCG and consumer segments. If you were to compare both the indices, this index Nifty Next 50 actually takes exposure through to let's say personal care, to breweries, to beverage companies, through diversified retail and specialty retail, both through hotels, through airlines. So there are lot of subsegments which are going and capturing are being captured through this index, vis-a-vis let's say Nifty 50, because it houses large cap companies. So there the exposure towards the consumer and the FMCG segment is largely through diversified FMCG and some bit of more sectors. So one is that the sector distribution itself is much more smoother, and the other part is that underneath each sector, more subsegments are covered in Nifty Next 50. And they house a lot of emerging leaders also. In fact, if you see, there are a lot of sub segments which are unique, very unique, only to Nifty Next 50 indices. Yes.
Now, obviously, the more established companies which are already there in the Nifty 50 and your more traditional sectors would react differently to different market cycles. अभी आपने बताया कि emerging themes Nifty Next 50 में है. So, how do you think would these react to market cycles? Because एक बात तो तय है that it's not like the market will go up all the time. There will be down cycles also. There will be changes in economic conditions. So just to understand, what cycle would typically maybe favor these kind of sectors which you just mentioned in the Nifty Next 50 companies over Nifty 50 then?
Actually, very interesting data has come out, and this is an interesting question. If you look at data, let's say from 2003 and 2003 till date, let's divide this entire period into largely two: 2003 to 2017, and then 2018 to 2025 right now. Let's define broad market, or each year, when is it a broad market? So broad market is when Nifty 500 does better than Nifty 50. That's when you call it a broad market. We've seen from 2003 till 2017, whenever there has been a broad market, मतलब जब Nifty 500 ने Nifty 50 से better किया है, because Nifty 500 में आपके small caps and mid caps भी हैं, दो largely large caps है 70%, but 30% small and mid caps भी हैं Nifty 500 में. तो जब broader market ने better किया है, मतलब जब Nifty 500 ने better किया है, उस broad market में Nifty Next 50 ने Nifty 500 से भी better किया है. मतलब जब ब्रॉड मार्केट अच्छा करता है तो 500 तो अच्छा कर रहा है, बट उस ब्रॉड मार्केट में भी अगर आप देखेंगे निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 ने बेटर किया है. लार्जली द रीजन इज क्योंकि यहाँ पे इमर्जिंग लीडर्स बैठे हैं. सो जब ग्रोथ ब्रॉड बेसिंग होती है तब ये इमर्जिंग लीडर्स दे रैली इन दोज एक्सपेंशन पीरियड्स और दोज ब्रॉड बेसिंग पीरियड्स. दैट्स वन. आफ्टर 2020 also the gap between Nifty, जब Nifty 500 ने बेटर किया है Nifty 50 से, which means it's a broad market. ऐसा नहीं है कि निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 ने बेटर नहीं किया है, थोड़ा सा गैप कम है, बट इस टाइम पीरियड में अभी क्या हुआ है कि कुछ स्पेसिफिक स्टेबल एंड लार्ज कैप्स एंड क्वालिटी कुछ एरियाज ऑफ द मार्केट बेटर किए हैं, इसीलिए निफ्टी 500 थोड़ा सा बेटर किया है निफ्टी नेक्स्ट 50 में. However, for a large part of this historical period, The important point to note is जब broad market अच्छा करता है तो Nifty Next 50 उससे भी अच्छा करता है. So that's a very very interesting data point people should look at.
Yeah, I think while we always say that long-term investors को ये सब में नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए, they should not really be timing the market. You should still have the knowledge to understand how different market cycles and conditions would impact, your investments. So, I mean, clearly, when there are certain emerging themes, etc., उनका जो size smaller होता है, they are not that established. How would you handle maybe any kind of liquidity challenges, especially during market down cycles?
So Nifty Next 50 में as such liquidity challenge नहीं है और नहीं कहा जाएगा. पहली बात तो ये कि over the last 5 years, maybe 5 to 7 years, क्या हुआ है कि the liquidity profiles of large caps and mid caps itself has converged, and within large caps also Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50 kind of सभी के market caps बढ़े हैं. तो अब Nifty Next 50 का 51st and 100th stock का जो market cap है, that's very very liquid. Like we spoke at the start, 1,60,000 crores and 91,000 crores is the 100th stock ka market cap, which is a very decent number. So liquidity issues या liquidity problems यहाँ पे बिल्कुल नहीं आएंगी उस तरह से. The key difference between Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50 would be the kind of companies which sit there. The liquidity profile or the liquidity lens could be the same for Nifty 50 and Next 50 right now.
Okay, understood. Tell us a bit about some of these emerging themes that you mentioned, which are not present in the Nifty 50. I know you mentioned insurance, financial institutions, etc., but I understand there is the whole green theme as well, which is present in the Nifty Next 50, जो आजकल of course एक बहुत बड़ा important factor for investing हो गया है कई सारे investors के लिए. So tell us a bit about those themes.
Yes, so one is of course the green energy. Through one or two stocks it is present, which is not present in the Nifty 50. A lot of the power distribution companies are not present in Nifty 50, which they are present here. The lifestyle and the consumer piece is present here in a big manner, Nifty 50. And for example, hotels within that are present here, but not in Nifty 50. You can say diversified retail, like outlets, Avenue Supermart especially, is not present in Nifty 50. It's present here. So a lot of these lifestyle and consumer related things are better represented in Nifty Next 50. And green energy is represented very well here. Within the financials, the apart from the banks, the other things are very well represented here. The capital market piece or the NBFC and the HFC, the lending piece is very well represented here. So these are some of the things which are present more in Nifty Next 50.
Shelly, just going through your presentation, and it says that the current PE is below even 10-year averages. So is this like a great time to then to start investing? Because if valuations are, low, it's basically indicating that it's inexpensive right now.
Yes, Nifty Next 50 is currently from the trailing P perspective, its current PE is lower than the 10-year average PE. Of course, the 10-year average PE also would be a moving number as the market progresses, but currently it is below, and the gap between the current and the 10-year average is more than that what the Nifty 50 holds. So yeah, it's a opportune time from that perspective. Emerging leaders sitting there, growth sitting there, and the valuations being quite attractive. So it definitely leads to promising, and it leads to a very compelling reason for anyone to be taking exposure to Nifty Next 50.
शैली, अगर इन्वेस्टर्स को इस NFO में सब्सक्राइब करना है, सॉरी, व्हाट शुड बी द रिकमेंडेड टाइम होराइजन?
See, any equity allocation should definitely have a term horizon. The longer the better. But yeah, 3 to 5 years is something that one should look at as a time horizon for any equity investment, whether it is active or passive. And the longer time horizon the investor can keep much better. This index, is unique also in terms of its risk reward profile. So we did speak about growth. I would also bring in the volatility aspect. So if you were to just place Nifty 50, Nifty Next 50, and Nifty 500 and juxtapose them to each other, Nifty 50 is stable growth, quality companies. Nifty 500 also has a lot of this Nifty 50 large caps because the way it's constructed. So that's also, but it has mid and small caps also. So it sits somewhere between Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50. Nifty Next 50 has a little more volatility than Nifty 500 as well, and it is 1.5 times more volatile than Nifty 50. Also, the growth profile, the earnings profile for Nifty Next 50 is 3 to 5% higher than Nifty 50. So what I'm trying to convey is that the risk reward proposition of Nifty Next 50 is higher than Nifty 50. And in terms of volatility, because it houses emerging leaders, it is higher than Nifty 500 also. So this piece, when you compare all three indices, Nifty Next 50 is actually a high risk, high reward proposition for investors looking to benefit from growth and momentum, presence in the indices. See, the way the indices are constructed, any of these traits are all incidental. It is not thought that this segment or this index should have growth, or this index should have momentum, or this index should have quality. These are all incidental. But finally, as a result, what has happened is, or what exists is Nifty 50 is more quality and large cap stability. Nifty Next 50 is growth and momentum make put together, and 500 is again quality and some bit of momentum. So Nifty Next 50 actually has a lot of growth, momentum, and high risk, high reward, traits and nuances to itself, to the portfolio, and that is what makes it high risk, high reward.
ओके मुझे आपके परफॉर्मेंस मेजरमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी के बारे में सुनना है बिकॉज when it comes to a passive fund there is of course tracking error which is the biggest point that has to be monitored by the fund manager, but apart from that ऐसा कोई दूसरा performance metric है which Tata AMC will use to evaluate how effective the fund manager is to replicate the index?
So tracking difference and tracking error, we keep a close eye on both. And we believe that once you are able to manage the daily tracking difference, the difference between the index and the portfolio performance, and you're able to streamline that piece on a daily basis, the tracking error automatically gets streamlined. So that's a very, very important point, that it is not one at month end or at quarter end or one of the days in between that we need to track. On a daily basis, in a disciplined manner, if the tracking difference is tracked, tracking error, which is the regulatory measure to measure a index on the equity side, a passive index, passive fund on the equity side, automatically the tracking error, is on track, or it's in control. So that's something. Our daily discipline to track the tracking difference is the key here.
Okay. I just want to get a little bit of personal finance advice from you, purely from an investor. How would you recommend कि investors अपना Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50 का exposure balance कैसे करें? I mean, should Nifty 50 be looked at core and Nifty Next 50 act as a satellite, या equal strategic allocations? What would you recommend? How would you look at it?
Yes. Thanks for asking that. I think both should be part of the core. As we said, that Nifty Next 50 is actually a very diversified. It has a great sector diversity. It has a great subsector diversity. Emerging leaders sit here. It's a high risk, high reward proposition. And it is a very liquid profile of companies sitting there as well. Taking all this into consideration, it definitely should be a part of core portfolio alongside Nifty 50. Yes, it may so happen that if you're allocating 20% to Nifty 50, this could be 15% or 16%. It could so happen. But yes, this also should be a part of your core portfolio, Mobina.
And let's say if someone is just starting their investment journey, then what do you recommend? How should they look at the Nifty Next 50 fund vis-a-vis also the risk element that you explained our viewers about.
Yes. From the if it's the beginner investor, then yes, Nifty 50 should take a larger allocation in his portfolio, and let's say Nifty Next 50 could be 8 to 10% or 5 to 10% from that perspective, because as I mentioned, the volatility is 1.5 times of Nifty 50 and higher than Nifty 500 also, because of the kind of companies sitting here. But at the same time, these are unique companies adding value in the way India can be taken exposure to, the Indian economy can be taken exposure to. Yes.
All right, Shelly, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us और हमारे viewers को इतने अच्छी तरीके से explain करने के लिए, not just about the Tata Nifty Next 50 Index Fund, but about this particular index, कैसे वो Nifty 50 से कितना अलग है. And remember, folks, this NFO for the Tata Nifty Next 50 Index Fund is open from 12th September. That's 12 September 2025 to 26 September 2025. Shelly, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mubina. Totally our pleasure to be present here. Thank you.
And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. This brings us to the end of the webinar.